I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And it's time once again for BattleBots Breakdown, and I've got Ashley reppin' Ripperoni.
Always love for the pizza.
Yes, always love for the pizza, which we will definitely talk about the pizza. There's a lot to cover because we're talking about 2 weeks of BattleBots here. So we have to go all the way back to the week prior. And that episode kicked off with Hydra versus free shipping. First of all, so many flips. Definitely setting the record for the most flips ever. And I think Jake was intentionally trying to hit the lights. That's why he kept doing it, to try and hit the lights. And I know, when I talked to him, he said that if Hydra ever does hit the ceiling or you send a robot to the ceiling, then they can retire Hydra because they've accomplished the mission. And I felt so bad for Gary Jin during that match because, free shippings looked really great this year. But I think very early into that match, he was like, well, this is just how it's going to go. So I might as well go full send and try and get at him as much as I can. And I'm probably going to get flipped, but that's the way it's going to go.
Literally full send right into Hydra 20 different times. I went back and I was literally counting and I was like, what? Yep. Wow. Okay. I was like, we're a minute and a half in and there's nine flips, and all of a sudden Jake hits 11 more and you're just like, okay, all right, yeah, the shipping was definitely free this time.
free air shipping. Yep.
Yeah, but who doesn't want to see a roof shot? We love it in Norwalk, we love to see it, so to see it in a big box just like that, yeah, no, go for it. I'm here for it.
Yes, and for fans that didn't hear the full explanation on my Hydra episode, because I've seen a lot of questions about him doing the flips while free shipping was being counted out. Per Jake, no, he did not ask Gary's permission to do that. He absolutely just did it, because he wanted to. So, you gotta get those extra flips in there, I guess.
Yeah, of course. When your bot is dialed in and working as phenomenally as it was working in that match, you don't have a choice but to keep going and just showing exactly what you're there to prove.
Yes. Really, I kind of think that I felt the same way going into this match as I did the rotator match. That the rotator match, I was like, I think that whoever that first opponent is, Jake's just going to go after them because of what happened last season. And kind of same thing for this match. Whoever that opponent was, Jake's just going to go after them because he just lost a tantrum. So it's not going to be pretty either way for that robot. Gary, he did the best he could with the situation. But yeah, it's just a lot of flipping.
Yeah, there was definitely nothing that was going to stop Jake, especially after his last match. It didn't matter who it was. I would have been terrified no matter what.
Yes, exactly. I think maybe a strategy in the future is that prior to every match, Jake just needs to pretend that he just lost a tantrum and he will win every single match.
He'll be fine. He'll be totally good.
Yes. And so what's interesting is the beginning of that episode, it was Waiachi and then more Waiachi because the next match was Huge versus Fusion. And I'm just going to add that both of these first two matches I predicted would end in fire, and I was really surprised that neither of them did. But Huge versus Fusion. So I want to make it clear, I love Fusion as a bot and I want it to do well, but as the match kind of got into it and Huge started dominating, my first thought was, there's the Fusion that we know and love, because that's kind of how things have gone in the past, as opposed to how the first two matches of this season have gone, and resulted in a KO from Huge, which again, like, Huge is just on it this season. I don't think like anybody would have an easy time against them based on the way that like the bot is performing and Jonathan is driving. So I expected Huge to win.
Yeah, like everybody knows, my heart stands with Huge. They're big Norwalk guys. Like, I absolutely love that team. So I love to see Huge dialed in. I love to see them sitting at 3-0. It makes me so ecstatic. Not to mention, like, the hilarious gif of Don Dorfler, like, hopping up all over Twitter had me dying for days. Like, absolutely loved it. But yeah, it stinks to see Fusion go to 2-1 because they did seem like they were dialed in. They seemed like they were really with it. And then you're right. But Huge came out, did exactly what he needed to do, popped that top plate, didn't let up, and absolutely dominated that match.
Yes, and now as a result, there are rare pieces of Fusion on eBay. So for anybody that wants a piece of Fusion, that is now something that you can try and acquire. So yeah. Then going from that, we went into Lockjaw versus Glitch. And I will say that I think Glitch did a really good job in the beginning, staying squared up. They looked like they were moving a lot better and more purposeful than what I'm used to seeing them move. And Donald Hudson made a decision that could have gone very well or very badly. We've seen in the past what can happen if you decide to go straight into Glitch's weapon. It's generally not advisable, not a good idea. And honestly, though, I'm still not entirely sure that Lockjaw, like, they didn't come away unscathed from that, because yes, they won the match, that it knocked Glitch over. They don't have the ability to self-right. So, I mean, that it did the job there, but then Lockjaw caught fire and, you know, they're probably going to have some major repairs after that one.
Yeah, definitely. Glitch was definitely moving a lot better. You could see those Omni wheels like really like doing their job and staying where they needed to stay. But Donald just has the experience. He's been around for so long. He's driven so many matches. Like, he knew exactly what he needed to do, and he knew that because of they were staying squared up, he was never going to get that side shot that he wanted. And he was like, all right, here we go, full send, weapon to weapon. And he definitely got the better of it. Thank goodness.
Yes, there was so much full send like in this episode, like it's ridiculous. And I mean, sometimes like that it's a risky strategy, but it could pay off. So, you know, then I think we had the match that many of us were looking forward to, which was Beta versus Shatter. I was just like psyched up about this for weeks. You know, I didn't know how it was gonna go. I mean, obviously, like, John Reed has a ton of experience, you know, but Shatter, I think, you know, the hammer design has probably a stronger potential for damage just because of like the, you know, the edges and stuff like that, if you can really get in there. But Beta's wedge design really worked, and John Reed just drove superbly well. I think that, you know, there was a moment, because I had talked to Adam about this, where Shatter's hammer was like in there, where if they could have actually gotten a shot in that exact spot, then the match would have gone very differently, but that they weren't able to do that. And so therefore it came down to a judge's decision and Beta ended up winning out.
Yeah, and it was so cool at the end even to see like how emotional like Adam got, and it like really like puts everything into perspective. But to see Beta like fire their weapon and hit Shatter 20 times in the match is like the most we've ever seen out of Beta, and it was so incredible. And Shatter was just not getting the shots that they needed. They were, on their side trying to get themselves out of the way, and it was just not exactly what he was looking for. But to see the two hammer bots just go head to head was just absolutely, I loved it.
Yes, it is a rare occurrence because obviously, like, there's not a lot of hammer bots, so it's not something you will typically see. And I mean, I think this just, lends itself to what I feel like has been a lot of fan service this season from BattleBots, as in terms of the matches that they've scheduled, that there's a lot of these matches that everybody's been like for a long time, I want to see this match, and they've really been able to deliver that and give that to us. So I think that that's great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You always wonder like who's gonna get the upper hand when you're driving such a similar style bot, and like which design is gonna have a little bit more of a effective. And obviously Beta did, having that huge front armor, just there was no getting through it, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly. And then I was kind of talking about like full send type of action, and Quantum versus Black Dragon, I think definitely fit that criteria. Black Dragon, I think, gave Quantum its biggest test of the season so far. But the big difference is that Quantum was not they didn't show fear towards Black Dragon's weapon. They weren't like, oh, well, we're afraid to get hit by it because we're not well armored. I mean, we know that, Quantum really isn't. It's kind of reliant on just being able to get that grip and not getting hit. But they just went for it and got the teeth right on in there, so much so that they ended up getting stuck together. And I thought it was especially funny that they showed, Trey went in there, took one look at it and was like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, to be able to just take the entire mouth of Quantum and just like take Black Dragon, it's just like, no, I'm gonna hold on to your weapon. You're not gonna get me. Like, don't even think about it. It definitely stinks that it ended in a stuck match, because like I would have loved to see that play out for 3 minutes. Black Dragon was not, like, they were not holding back. They were going straight for their teeth. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They had a strategy and they were trying to execute. And both bots were just so strong. And for them to be able to push each other across the box multiple times, like, there was so much power in both of those robots. It's incredible.
Yes, there definitely is. And Black Dragon still keeps the streak alive. They did not get KO'd. It was a judge's decision. So, that says a lot about their robot, and the durability of it. Now, the next one, like, I was so excited for a lot of reasons. So the debut of Terror Tops, which I just have to say, like, I love so much. I interviewed Ben way back last year before filming even happened, and so many people, seem to not believe in that robot, or not believe that it could be effective. And I was like, in my mind, no, like, I know it can be. I know it can. And, going up against Slammo, which, sorry, Craig. I love Slammo. I've told Pete Abramson before, like, he and I were both like, Slammo should win the giant nut. I mean, I love it, but I was really excited to see Terror Tops prove their concept and show, like, yeah, we're gonna lift the robot and then come at him with the spinner underneath, which is freaking genius, as long as it works. And it did. I was just like so overwhelmingly excited for them. I mean, Terror Tops and Ripperoni are definitely my two favorite rookie bots for sure.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. You always love to see the cool designs. It was funny. Tamara texted me and she's like, I feel like that's a robot like we would build. And I was like, yeah, no, that fits right. That fits right in the crazy scheme of the things that we come up with. So, like, it was so cool to see them do so well and be able to perform and really prove that that robot has power. And they drove Slammo right into the wall. And yeah, Craig, I'm really sorry, but you definitely came up a little bit short in this match. And better luck next time.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm just going to say, if anybody thinks that Terror Tops looked great in that match, oh boy, you have not seen anything yet. So that's all I'm gonna say. And then the last match was Tantrum versus Blip. Sibling rivalry seems reasonable. And like I've already talked to Alex and Ginger, of course, like after this happened and everything, but I mean, they said like, when you come to BattleBots, you have to be prepared to fight anyone, even the people that are part of your own team. So you have to really get in there and do it. And Blip looked the best in that match that they have all season. I saw a lot of people saying there were, they had opportunities to flip and they didn't do it, but I think that like they were kind of purposeful in when they chose to use the flipper. And obviously, like, yeah, they want to win, like both teams want to win, but they're not going to try and destroy the other robot. That seems kind of counterproductive. So I mean, I'd love to hear, well, in fact, I'm interviewing all of them next week, but to ask them, did you purposefully like try to go a little bit on the easy side just so you don't destroy the robot? Because that would be a bad thing. But I thought it was a great match. Tantrum caught fire,
Yeah.
which is not common. So yeah, just really interesting.
Yeah, it's always like we said, it's cool to see similar bot styles go head to head. So like when you have like the main engineer of both robots going head to head, but at the end of the day, like it's super awesome for Aaron. Like he definitely came out to play. He knew how much he needed that win, and there was nothing that was going to stop that. And he was definitely purposeful in his driving and his maneuverability and being able to. And I do feel like maybe, especially after the fire, he held back a little bit because you don't want to go back to the pits and have to totally rebuild 2 entire robots. So, but it was such a good match, and it was just awesome.
Yes, it really was. And I mean, I honestly, I would have given Blip the advantage anyways, only because Aaron is driving that robot and Aaron probably knows the most about both bots of anyone. So I feel like that's somewhat of an advantage. But yeah, I mean, great match by both. And I just love the camaraderie and, saying like, we all put everything into both of these bots and like everyone's together. And I think that's just great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because Aaron, Alex, and Ginger are all in the registration for March Norwalk. So Seems Reasonable is coming to Connecticut. So I'm actually super excited to be able to like see them all in person and like hopefully get to talk to them because they just seem like they're fantastic people.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, who knows? If you ask, I'm sure that Aaron will show you everything about the robot. Because I've heard he's really, nice about doing that sort of thing. So
Make my way in.
yes. So we go from that episode, and first, before we talk about any matches, we have to talk about the pizza commercial, which I already knew was likely coming because Anna had teased that a little bit and said that they did some kind of thing and she wasn't sure when or if they were going to air it. And I'm so glad that they did. Like the cold open stuff that they're doing this season, like they did with the mini bot commercial, like is just freaking fantastic. I mean, like so entertaining. So more of that. Like we need more of that.
One of my friends texted me that was like had watched the episodes like on Discovery Plus, and all I got was "You're gonna love the cold opening," and I was just like, okay. And then like the cold opening came, and I was like, I was like, Anna, and Anna, like it's so good, it's so fantastic. Give me more.
Yes. And I mean, Ripperoni, I think, is the perfect robot to do something like that with, because you really can get into the whole like pizza aspect of it. Yeah, and I thought it was fantastic all the way down to the end where Anna bites the pizza and is like, I think there's like bolts in this. So yeah, like so funny. So you know, if those who were in charge of making those things for BattleBots are watching, more of that. I want more of that.
Please and thank you.
Yes. So going from that into the first match, which was Gruff versus Witch Doctor, and I really only had one word for that match, and that was fireball. Because it, like, when it happened, I literally like was watching it and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because you know, like, we've seen that happen with some robots. I mean, Gruff obviously has the fire element, but I don't recall if they've ever like just blown up like that.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not that I can remember, but I mean, it was cool to see that their flame was lasting for so long and it was staying on even though they were getting hit. And like Andrea and Mike are just absolutely incredible. Witch Doctor is looking so fantastic this year, but yeah, that hit came out of nowhere. It hit that power and it was just like, oh yeah, that's a lot of fire, and that's yikes.
Yes, and yeah, Witch Doctors looked really good this year. I think that they have kind of played it smart with the adjustments that they've made from match to match. And it's going to be so interesting because you have a 3-0 Witch Doctor going into their final match with Minotaur. So it's really going to be like the battle of who's going to be undefeated. And so it's even higher stakes of a match than it already was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, and both bots are looking so good. So it's like that fight is going to be incredible, and it'll be really, really interesting to see like who comes out on top.
Yes, exactly. Really, and how it goes down in general.
Yeah.
Like, you know, is it going to be a close match? Is it going to be a slaughter? Who knows?
Who knows?
So yeah, I'm really excited to see how that plays out. And then going into controversy, Malice versus Valkyrie. So that was definitely an interesting match. First of all, I want to say, personally, I think that's the best Malice has looked in some time. Like just really dialed in. Disconnected the weapon blade off of Valkyrie, which has happened before, but I mean, it's still like insane to see it happen. Now, you know, for me watching it, there were a couple of things that I think I was confused on before it even went into like the judge's decision, because they obviously started going into a count out. And I wasn't entirely sure what was going on when that happened, because I'm like, they're technically both moving, which constitutes movement, so they can't be counting them out for movement. And then I thought maybe it was engagement, but like they were still kind of close to each other. I mean, not exactly like hard hitting stuff, but I still, it confused me because I've seen matches where there was less going on in terms of both robots and they didn't do a double count out. And I think another Malice fight, the one with Emulsifier, is a great example of that, because a lot of people were very confused on that one. So I think when you look at those two fights, it doesn't seem consistent as far as what was done in them. Now, thankfully, another new rule that we have this season is the appeal. And Bunny chose to use the appeal, which obviously, like, I think anybody would have in that situation, but you could tell that it was, you know, there was a little bit of tenseness in a way, because it's like, you don't want to be like, hey, Lucy, sorry, like, I know that you thought you won, but you're, you know, we're going to get this reversed. But I mean, it was the right call. Like, in the end, it was the right call. Malice should have won that match. I don't think that there's any question about that. But the judges just may not have seen some things from their vantage point and then realized, oh, like, you know, this is the correct decision.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely, I mean, I definitely don't blame Bunny at all. And even in Lucy's shoes, it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, like, what else do you expect? Like, when a fight goes like that close and you know that your weapon is still spinning at the end and you've literally dislodged the other members, weapon, there's not a lot to say. And like Bunny immediately was like, appeal. And I immediately was like, yep. Because yes, yep. If that had not gotten overturned, I think people would have been very, very shocked, because it was definitely more Malice's weapon was still working. They were definitely moving a little bit more, where Valkyrie definitely seemed like they were just stuck. So it was definitely the right call, and it was really interesting to see it go down.
Yes, because I think a lot of people have been anticipating this appeal rule and how it was going to actually play out in reality. And I think we saw an example of it working really well, working the way that it was intended to. So, for anybody that thought that the judges would just like make the same decision, that I don't think that that's the case. I mean, it could happen that they decide to make the same decision, but then like in cases like this where it was pretty obvious when you could see from all the different camera angles, they're going to reverse it. And it's always tricky because, if you lose the appeal, then you don't get another one. And then if that situation comes up again, then, that's it. But I think, when you see something and you believe wholeheartedly that this is what should have happened, then it makes sense to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was definitely cool to see like the whole process play out, and like really see the judges do take it into account. They take it seriously. They listen to what they have to say. They go back, they watch the tapes. Like they're not messing around when it comes to the appeal process. And Bunny was very serious in her decision, and the judges took it seriously. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, I think it was the right call 100%.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be curious to see how often that gets used the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. It will definitely be interesting to see if there's any more.
Well, especially because like now that someone has used it and been successful, I feel like that would motivate teams to be more like, okay, this
Not so
does
scary
work.
now.
So we'll see if that sparks any more use of it. Then so Mad Catter versus Big Dill, all I can say is holy crap, what a fight. Like seriously amazing. And honestly, like Big Dill gets a lot of flack, but when you look at, just for example, how good they were doing against Scorpios until they stopped working for the last fight. And like this fight is just a continuation of that, where they just like looked amazing, because Mad Catter is not an easy robot to fight whatsoever. I mean, they're very tough. They can be very destructive. Mad Catter ended up getting the judge's decision, but I mean, realistically, like this truly was a fight that I feel like could have gone either way. It was so back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the match, I literally was like, I have no idea who's taking the win here. Like, there was so much destruction, so much back and forth. I love that the mini bots started the match and they all went to the center before the big guys started. It just like, made my heart happy a little bit. But to see Emmanuel versus Calvin and the driving abilities of both of those guys is just absolutely incredible. And to see both bots functioning for the whole time and being able to absorb those hits and lose forks, and I love the vert on Big Dill. It makes my like it's so awesome to see, and it seems like they're really getting used to it, and it's definitely effective. And the match was just awesome. There was so much going on the entire time, and it was just so back and forth and so awesome.
I also learned something as a result of that match, and I'm like, I wish like if it had played out the other way, then that would have been perfect to utilize. But a thing I didn't know is that if you put a cucumber behind an unsuspecting cat and the cat turns around and sees the cucumber, it will freak out. So that's like when I saw that, I was like, this is a perfect thing for this match. Like,
Yeah, I totally saw that on social media before the match, and I totally forgot that was like a trend for a really long time. That like all those, and like I've never done it to my cat, but I do think it would be absolutely hilarious to try.
Yes. I'm like, what is it about a cucumber? Why is that so threatening to a cat? I don't know. But clearly, like in that match, the pickle made an impact. So it's interesting to see. So another match that reminded me of something consistently was the Ribbot versus Jackpot. What it reminded me of, because Ribbot looked dead so many times in that match where I'm like, okay, this is it, it's done. And it just kept trying to come back. And I was like, yes, David, you do it. You keep trying to come back. But it reminded me of that, like Warner Brothers or whatever, that cartoon frog that would be like just a frog, and then all of a sudden it would start singing with the top hat and everything like that. That's what it reminded me of. Like, it's dead, it's not doing anything, and then all of a sudden it's doing things. So yeah, it's, you know, I thought Jackpot hadn't looked great prior to that in the season, and maybe they figured it out, and like it just looked really good. So like Jeff must have done something right there.
Yeah, Jeff definitely dialed it in, and like it was really incredible to see him just be so strategic in his hits, and to take that first wheel off and then just be like, okay, I'm not done yet. Like, here you go. Here's your second wheel. Bye. Like, you don't need that. I'm good. I got this. And just absolutely never let up, showed the aggression that he needed to show, like gave the judges a reason to be behind Jackpot, and like really show them that, yeah, I'm here, I can do this, this robot is durable, like Ribbot is a really big robot, and a really like effective robot, and a scary robot, and for Jackpot to be able to come in and just be like, yeah, no, I'm here, pay attention, like was really, really kind of cool to see too.
Yes. And like the craziest thing about that whole situation is Ribbot is 0-3. And that is incredible to me, because, you know, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of, well, not a lot, but I mean, there are some like people who think Ribbot was never that good to begin with. I'm definitely not one of those people. It's a great robot. I don't think that this is like saying, oh, well, this is how Ribbot's always been, and they should have been, you know, had worse records. No, like, they have fought really tough opponents this season. Like, they just have fought basically the wrong people at the wrong time, where like that other robot is just functioning at top level, and it's, you know, it's difficult to figure it out. So it's a challenge for them this year.
That's definitely surprising to see Ribbot sitting at 0-3 going into their last match. Not something I ever would have predicted.
Nope. But you know, we'll see how if they can bounce back from that, because if they went 0-4, I think my heart would like go die somewhere. I don't know. Like, it would, I would be very upset.
Yeah.
I would be very upset, because I love Ribbot and I want them to do well. So we'll see what happens with that. So like, I have a lot of feelings about the next match. So we had Sawblaze versus Swordios, aka Scorpios, aka Forkios. So many different ways of doing this. And like, I know that a lot of fans were like, why did Scorpios put this blade on there that isn't going to do anything? First of all, overkill rules. So like, let's just get that straight. Overkill
Right there.
rules. It is one of my favorite robots of all time. Jameson Go and I agree on this. It is like, he also thinks that is one of the best robots of all time. Now, in terms of being effective, not necessarily as effective as some other bots. It's a giant sword. It's just cool. And so, you know, like, if I'm Scorpios, first of all, they did ask all of the other builders. Now, granted, if I was in any of those builders' shoes and I was asked, should I use this giant sword or should I use some other configuration? I'm voting the giant sword every time, just because of the cool factor. Now, in terms of what's going to be effective, I honestly think that the fork situation that they were talking about probably had a better chance of working against Saw, but it's still Sawblaze. Like, either way, it's Sawblaze, and you know, like, JMO is a difficult person to fight. Like, just flat out, he is a difficult person to fight. So like, for cool points, I understand their choice, because I mean, realistically, they were 2-0 going into that match, and it's one fight. If they feel pretty confident about their fourth fight, then like just do it. Just throw caution to the wind. Hopefully JMO doesn't realize that you're going to try and snipe certain parts of the robot, and you're successful at doing that. Like, why not? So obviously, like, it didn't work out. It truly hurt my heart, though, to see JMO cutting through the blade of Overkill. I was like, no. But I loved it. Like, I loved seeing that blade on Scorpios. I was so happy. But it just didn't work out.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like really interesting to see that type of wacky configuration. And like, of course, like someone like me, like I love that. Like, how can you not love that? But and then you just like see it drive and you're like, that is not a stable robot. That is not working out how they thought that was gonna work out. And like, not for nothing, why would you do that against Sibling? JMO is scary. His robots are scary. His driving's incredible. There was nothing that was stopping him. Like, yeah, it was absolutely cool to see, like, especially like as a robot fan, like you love to see configurations, especially like different ones that come from so long ago. And you're like, all right, yeah, that blade is like really cool and probably taller than I am as a human being, but like, it's okay. And like, but just to see, but it Scorpios, I feel like, had so much momentum, and it was cool to see them sitting at 2-0, and it was just kind of like, oh, did they really give it their full shot to try to get to 3-0? But like, I don't know. I get where they're coming from, but like, who doesn't want to see Scorpios versus Sawblades?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I get that a lot of people felt that they were cheated out of not seeing a true Hammersaw versus Hammersaw match, but like, I'm so on the fence with that because, I like, if they hadn't put that blade on Scorpios at some point this season, I would have been disappointed. I would have really been disappointed. So I might have different feelings about it than some other people just because I think that it's insanely awesome. But yeah, I mean, as a strategy, like if you're trying to win, I probably would have gone the other direction, but it depends on what your expectations and goals are. And, like there's a lot more to it. It's very complex. So, yeah, it was just, to me, that was fun. And then speaking of fun, Ripperoni, yeah, versus Hijinks. So I think that we have reached the point in this season where Fred Moore has become one with Ripperoni. I think that they are now symbiotic. They are together, and he has become one with the robot. So it was just like, I realized that it was tough for Jen because even before the match, she was like, yeah, everybody thinks we're going to lose. But I mean, based off of what Ripperoni did to Endgame, I understand. It's just crazy for me though to watch this match and then watch the match versus Endgame and think, if that first match versus Gruff hadn't been their first match in BattleBots ever, and they had a chance to like test it out more and dial it in, we could be looking at a 3-0 Ripperoni, like facts.
Yes, pizza. I will chant that until the season is over. I love Ripperoni. I love to see them so dialed in. Absolutely incredible driving from Fred. He just, went in, got the hits that he needed. He was patient. He took both the side hits, like got exactly where he needed to be. And it was just fantastic. I love Ripperoni so much. I was dying at the fact that the beans was checked off on the front of the match after having to fight Brandon Zielinski and his Spill the Beans match. But yeah, no, it was so cool to see. It really definitely stinks for Jen and the Hijinks team because obviously I love that robot. It's so colorful. It's so fun. Like that team is fantastic. But yeah, no, pizza all the way, all day. I will never stop.
Yes, exactly. If the choice is between pizza and just about anything else, the choice should probably be pizza. So this will be really interesting to see the finish of the season. Obviously at this point, I think Ripperoni likely to be in the round of 32, and to see how that turns out. I'm really excited for what they have in store. So yeah. And then the last match, the main event, Endgame versus Hypershock, which, so first of all, props to the Hypershock team for always coming up with inventive things to do when they come out of the tunnel. Loved the sunglasses thing. That was amazing. But the match itself was kind of a slaughter. I don't think that I expected much different, because again, like, sometimes you may be the unfortunate person to face someone after they've gone through a certain situation and they feel like they have something to prove and there's a little bit of extra motivation there. Whoever Endgame fought after that Ripperoni match was going to be hurting, and it just happened to be Hypershock.
Yeah, I mean, Jack and Nick came right out and said it, and they were like, Ripperoni was the loss that we weren't super worried about because it was half of our own fault. And so it was like, yeah, no, they were here to prove why Endgame is one of the best robots at BattleBots, why they are one of the champions from the past. Like, they were never going to let up in this match. And Hypershock has been so dominant, and like, Will, can be a little bit of a crazy driver, and they knew that, and they knew exactly what kind of strategy they needed to execute. And they were just like, yep, okay, I'm the champ. This is why. Don't forget how dangerous we can actually be in this arena.
Yes, exactly. And this is another one of those situations where you have a Hypershock, who is normally like one of the top level robots with not the best record. So I don't think that records tell the entire tale when you're looking at that, because obviously you have to look at quality of opponent, not just quality historically, but quality of like how they are performing this season. And unfortunately, Hypershock, it has had a tough schedule. And like Endgame, Sawblaze, you're talking about like really good robots, and this is kind of scary potentially for them because their final match is versus Claw Viper. And as I have said, I just feel very strongly that Claw Viper may win that match. And then like what happens, that like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, Will came out and said it. Kevin has been on it, and he knows what he's up against in Claw Viper, and it will definitely be a really interesting match because both robots are very, very fast as well. So it's really going to come down to who's dialed in, who can get those shots, and who can get that control. But it's definitely interesting to see the record that they're sitting at now, but it was really cool to see Endgame back on top and reminding us why they are so powerful.
Yes, that is true. The Kiwis have come to play. So we'll see what happens the rest of the season for them. I certainly expect to see them in the tournament and hadoing good things. But if they fight Minotaur again, then that might not end so well for them. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so much exciting stuff. Now, this is going to be an interesting next couple of weeks because from my understanding, we will have an episode next week, but then BattleBots is taking a couple week hiatus with no new episodes, possibly because of March Madness or whatever may be going on. So we'll have some time to kind of think about and digest where we're at this point in the season before we resume. But just we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We're getting down to people having 3 matches in the can and it kind of coming down to that last match, and a lot's going to be on the line for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we've already seen so many matches and like seen so many teams have 3 matches, and like really going to be interesting to see how the rest of the field plays out, because there are still a good handful that are, have just their two, and we'll see them in the next, month or so. But it'll be really, really interesting to see how that field stacks out.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that was a lot of really awesome robot stuff to talk about. And for those that are checking this out today, please make sure that you follow for next week, as Monday I will have an episode with Andrea Galately of Witch Doctor, which should absolutely be a fantastic one. And then Wednesday I will have an episode with G-Force Robotics, which is a girls robotics team down in North Carolina. Really awesome stuff that they're doing. So excited for that. And then we'll be back here next weekend, with the last BattleBots breakdown before the hiatus to kind of wrap that up. So keep watching.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to see you in just a week.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because there's a lot more on the way. And keep supporting combat robotics. We'll see everybody next time on the show.
Yeah.